All right, gang, I'm talking about apples today. That juicy, tart, fruity, slightly boozy vibe that just fits perfectly in fall fragrances. Do you enjoy apples and fragrances? Let me know. Do add a comment below. But this is part of my top 10 autumn notes deep dive video. And I've decided to take that video and break them down into 10 separate videos. In case you felt the original video was too long, you can watch the notes separately in individual videos. Skip ones you don't want to hear about and watch ones you want to hear about, all individually. Now, I've done 3 videos. This is the 3rd one, and there's 7 more coming down the line. So apples can be fresh and green, can be dark and spiced, but I think this note brings a fun modern twist to fragrances that can be enjoyed in the fall season. Yeah, I consider apples an autumn note. In fact, up near where my family lives, there's a place where we can go pick apples in autumn, like October, I think. And it's the autumn experience is perfect right there, you know. Apples ripened, it's kind of breezy, but still the sun is warm. It's perfect for apple picking and buying. And I love apples. It's one of my favorite notes. I mean, not notes, but fruits to eat. But also, I like them in fragrances as well. And I totally consider it one of the ultimate in autumn fragrances. And also, apples are also used quite a bit in the autumn, you know, like pies are made, desserts are made, and I love apple desserts so much. Apple pie, apple crumbles, and things like that. I just love anything made with apples for desserts, like sugary, kind of caramelly, maple syrupy, you know, syrups drizzled all over, kind of dough and apples. It's one of my favorites. So I've got 5 apple themed fragrances here. Some of them do lean boozy, but and we also have a boozy category here in the mix as well. But I love apples, as I said, and I love smelling like apples. But you know what? Let's do a little segue here. Some people complain on this channel that why would I want to smell like food? So, why do you guys like to smell like food, and why do you guys not like to smell like food? Add a comment below, because, I mean, I get asked the question, why do you want to smell like food? But nobody ever says, why would you want to smell like food? And why you wouldn't want to smell like food, if that makes sense. So put a comment down. Let's talk about apple fragrances here. First is Apple Brandy on the Rocks from the house of by Kilian. Yeah, this one goes boozy. This is also very fruity. I believe there's also pineapple here, but it's so super delicious. I like that because apples have a fragrance, but their fragrance becomes a bit more intense when they're cooked or macerated or boiled or whatever, you know, for cider and things like that. That's another thing that's prominent in the autumn months, cider. And here, I feel like the apples are just put in to bake. You're starting to smell the difference, but there's still the smell of the freshness of the raw apples in comparison to the cooked apples. There's a kind of a barrel aging quality about this as well. I believe there's an oak note in this, but it's awesome. It's super boozy, and it's a great take on a fruity, boozy cocktail like a fragrance, and focusing on the apples. Yum, so good. I was actually for a while not talking about Kilian's fragrances, but they have launched some really great fragrances lately. The Smoking Hot, which I have coming up later. I shouldn't say Smoking Hot. That's also great. I have that coming later as well. But Old Fashioned, man, that is so super awesome. So I think they do really great with boozy and slightly gourmand fragrances. So got to talk about them, because even though I kind of consider their fragrances not the longest lasting, they have some of the best smells, I think. I think if it's Kilian Hennessy doing the curating of the fragrances and, you know, dealing with the perfumers and, you know, all that kind of stuff, then they're doing a good job. They know the direction with the boozy fragrances and things like that. And definitely Apple Brandy on the Rocks is super, super delicious. And I think they've done a great job. This one also doesn't smell, like, I think I mentioned that, but it doesn't smell super, like, it smells very fresh, even though there's a side to it that does smell a bit, you know, cooked like apple or distilled. So fermented, because in a booze like a theme, it's going to get aged and things like that, so it takes on a different smell. For me, this one, as I was saying earlier, has both sides. There's a fresh side about it, like you're smelling the raw apples, but also the fermenting side where it's being left to kind of turn into liquor or something. So that's apple brandy on the rocks. So awesome. And then we've got Promise from the house of Frederic Malle. I almost said the night. It's Promise for sure. This is a Frederic Malle creation by Dominique Ropion, definitely one of the best. But I almost feel like this does not fit this collection. Does it? It's an oudi collection, but this one is not super oudi, even though it has Cypriol in the notes, and a lot of people associate that smelling like oud. But to me, the Cypriol creates a barrel smell, like the woody barrels that they age liquor in. That's what you get with this one. So it has a kind of a woody, barrel-y, aged, kind of boozy, fruity apple kind of a experience. The Cypriol note, or is it papyrus? Because I get those two kind of mixed up. They smell similar. That's super prominent in this. Super prominent. I think I have a video on the channel of Cypriol fragrances, or maybe it's papyrus. But to me, I get those two mixed up. But there's also rose in here. There's not a lot of warmth under there. There's some slight warmth. To me, it acts more fresh, or the utilizing of fresher notes. Eventually, it does get warm, but what I like is that realistic smell of the oak barrels of where they age the liqueur. It's a fruity, boozy, floral experience. Really awesome. But I think it doesn't really fit the collection, the Desert Gems. What do you guys think? Because it doesn't have oud, but maybe I think they're saying it's Cypriol. People associate that with oud, so we'll put it in that collection. But also, I should say, they just launched Hope last year. Hope, to me, is almost like the same formula. It's kind of turned upside down. So when you smell Hope, you get a lot of oud, Western oud, but it also smells a bit like this. So you can actually layer the two together for a very expensive layering combo, but it's doable. All right, let's move on to Jeroboam Vespéro. We actually spoke about this recently with Francois Anan of Jeroboam Javoy. If you haven't caught my video with him, they just launched a fragrance called Cognac. It's with pear. It's very juicy, but lots of musk. I think it's definitely going to be popular for the house, but this is definitely also really great. I mentioned in the video when I was talking to him about this fragrance, like this is their answer to something like Aventus, but it's a very green apple-y fragrance. It's super fresh, spicy, also woody and musky as well, because this brand has a fragrance called Origino. It is their musk fragrance. It's a cocktail of musks and aromatic and herbal notes and woods. It's basically the base of a lot of their fragrances. You can also use that to enhance the fragrances as well. So there's a lot of musks in here, but there is a lot of apples. I wouldn't say this smells like Aventus. It doesn't, but it's kind of like the answer to Aventus. This doesn't smell like Aventus whatsoever. Just don't think going in here it's going to remind you of Aventus. But then noses are different. It might remind you of Aventus. To me, it doesn't. Kind of a similar idea, but it's super spicy, very woody. It's green and appley, and also musky. Definitely you experience the apples in Vespéro. Let me know if you're familiar with that one. There's a bit of leather in that fragrance also, I think. But the next fragrance, going to the house of État Libre Orange once again. This is I Am Trash. So apples are not the most used note in fragrances, but definitely there's a few out there, and I think État Libre, the Orange's I Am Trash is definitely an apple bomb. It's super green, juicy, but I smell the skin here as well. I feel like this got a lot of woods, and I think the idea of upcycling was prominent here with this fragrance. I think from what I read, they went to restaurants and took the leftover foods, and the apples is one of the things, so they got all the scraps and things and they turned it into the notes to use in this fragrance. I think that's what I remember, and also that's why it's what it's called. It's I Am Trash. Basically, they collected the remains or the leftover, pretty much trash, and they used it to create a fragrance. It's super juicy and clean, woody and earthy, I think, but very green also with the apple note in this. It's very, very fresh, and I also get, like I said, the skin of the apples. Definitely, it's pleasant if you like the idea of apples and fragrances, the juiciness, the fruitiness. I Am Trash for sure from the house of État Libre Orange. And then finally, Parfums and Marley's Greenley is definitely one of the best apple fragrances, I think, out there on the market. This is super uber juicy and also musky. There's a lot of cashmeran or cashmere wood in this fragrance. Yum. I love that. It's green also. I think there's a lot of citrus leafy notes, like petitgrain notes in here. So it kind of brings out a bit of, well, greenness for sure, but also a bit of bitterness. But I started out thinking that fragrance was just okay. I liked it. I said it was not anything groundbreaking, but even though right now it's still not anything groundbreaking, I've come to really, really enjoy it. And I love wearing it. It smells really, really great on skin. In fact, it smells better on skin than it does on the strip. And I like that about it. But I love its greenness. And it's quite enjoyable in the summertime to wear because it's quite fresh. I guess maybe you guys thought I was going to include kind of gourmand apple fragrances here. We're just highlighting the notes themselves. They don't necessarily have to go gourmand. I suppose the Kilian was the most gourmand here. But again, it's just the note we're talking about. It doesn't have to be gourmand. I just feel like apples are a perfect autumn note, especially since in the autumn you go pick the apples. There's a lot of apple orchards and things like that. One of my favorite fruits. Also during the autumn months, you're also cooking a lot and baking a lot with apples. So it's a kind of an apple-y season, I think, the autumn months for sure. Now that's my apple lineup. From crisp to spicy to a little bit boozy, apples are so much enjoyable to wear in the fall season. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you have a favorite apple fragrance that you wear in the fall season? Do you enjoy the fragrances that I discussed in today's video? Do add a comment below and stick around for the next video. We're talking about tea, which I also find to be super, super awesome to wear in the fall season.